Hi, I want to show the progress that I made on my Visby game experiment. Uh, I've added a few more things. The first thing you'll see is a little bit more UI. Like all this is placeholder obviously. You can see marks 0 there, just showing how much money you currently got. And I also added a few more actions that I can show off. Characters are moving around. You can go behind someone. You can search them, hold the button down, and then you can steal from them and get 5 of these coins. If you search from the front, you get pushed back, and you can see the little red circle on top of these characters. That's just the one you have targeted. I wanted to make an outline, but I didn't do that now just yet. There's an outline of the sprites. You can kind of see a shimmer around the edges. I'll probably do that next. You can also tap characters. Tapping them basically makes them stop for a little bit. And you can push them. This is the same action that they perform against you. You can basically push crowd characters. Searching and stealing is basically what you kind of want to do for most of this. So you can see it just adding up. If you go to the guards, try to steal stuff, they push you back. If you try to push them, they push you back. If you tap them, nothing happens right now. I might make them turn around if you do that. There's also another little detail here if you notice. It's a rat. I drew a rat, scanned it in, generated normal maps, created a tiny animation where it's just going up and down. And you can pick it up. And as you pick it up, it's in your inventory. So there's a new action you can do now, which is drop. And basically dropping the rat makes it get out away from you and run away. You can see animations playing on all these characters as they react to the rat. And also the rat has a large radius. It's part of the crowd, so it pushes things away. It doesn't get affected by other things. The rat will also come back from the other side. The way the crowd works, there's a trick here. As they reach the side, the edge of the screen, they basically get teleported to the other side. Same thing happens for the rat. So the rat comes back here and pops them up, scares them. And the animation here is just, it's a super basic stretch animation. They go up in the air and they stretch, and then as they go down, they kind of go down a little bit more, and then they go back to their neutral pose. I wanted to show off the animation system this time. So I have a blend graph, and I have since there's lots of characters, they all have a blend graph running. And the blend graph is kind of like a animation tree, and it has lots of these selectors. Each selector has a couple of children that it chooses between. So most of the time, because these guys are moving around, they just have a movement animation. Maybe I show the player actually because it's a better choice. So the player here is idling. I go to the right, it chooses the move and it's moving right. You go to the left, it chooses move left. You can see the playback rate. You can also inspect the state. The state is basically the pose and any other animation curves. You can see how it changes direction by changing the rotation. And the scale is basically the thing that's moving up and down. I kind of also want to show the way I implement this graph is that I use variables, and these variables are being written from the gameplay code, and then the animation blend graph here is reading those variables and doing a comparison, a conditional check to choose animations. You can also see the root motion. The root motion is currently disabled. Rotation I take directly from the characters. So this animation system is something I wrote, I think a year or 2 ago. I kind of fixed things with it this last week. And I wanted to show some of the code of how I set up a blend graph. Because I don't have an editor, but I can do it in code. So the way it starts, I have this animation controller. And the animation controller doesn't just run blend graphs, it can run other things. I previously had just simple animations that they play. But the graph is now the thing that I moved on to. So the first thing you do is create it, and then you have animations that I find that have been loaded previously, like idle, and the new reaction animation. I also, by default, I set all animations to be looping because I basically make this animation system for locomotion, like another 3D game that I made. But the reaction animation I had to set it not looping. And you have to move left, right, move up and down. I don't actually have the move up and down because that would mean more animation or more sprites to create. Then I also have these variables that I create, like the speed, horizontal and vertical. They're normal speed. I also have 0 variable and half variable. Those are kind of like constants in my system. And then I have a movement playback rate, and also a variable for playing that reaction. That's just a boolean, like a trigger to actually do that. And also set up the default values, because if I have the way I do things, because I want to kind of catch errors immediately, I put the search in like the lower level to see if there's something wrong there, just to not have like small glitches be around for a long time. I don't crash the game, I just assert and tell you about it. But I do it this way because it's easier for me and faster for me to find bugs, since I don't really have a QA team doing testing on my game. And then the second thing I have is these conditionals, and conditionals are basically logic that runs. You can do comparison between these variables. You can compare one variable to another, like the speed against 0. That's basically the idle comparison. So am I walking or not? And then the moving comparison, the speed against variable, but you see that the condition is greater than, so it's more than 0. And then I have the reaction comparison, which is basically just, it's really just returning the boolean what the value is, if it's true or false. Then they have the moving left, right, up and down, and they're basically checking horizontal and vertical. And then I have this new thing that I added, the playback rate variable. So each animation can have a variable controlling the playback rate. So it's a generic playback rate system in the basic animation playback controller that I have. And then basically the tree rather, because it really just has, the tree is a root and then this move node, so the move selection node. And the move selection node has 4 children, move left, right, up and down, and then they have the comparisons. So checking, are you moving left, are you moving right, are you moving up and down. This is specifically to 2D game. I also have another blend system where I can do a 2D blend, so it basically blends animation, so it's X and Y, but I don't want to use that for a 2D game. I actually want to select animations here. And I also have a 0 blend duration between these, so I basically want to flip animations, because the way I'm doing it in 3D, it would rotate the sprite, which is kind of a nice effect, but it's not really what I want. And then at the root level, because this move direction is actually a level below the root level, I have the reaction animation as the first child, and then I have the idle, and then I have the move. Because the way I do these conditions checks, I start from the top and then I go to the bottom. So if the first thing is true, then it will choose that animation. And because a reaction is basically something that's supposed to override whatever is coming next, it's kind of the highest priority, and then the idle, and then the move. And I also here set the blend duration of 0. This is kind of a case I kind of want to have a longer blend, but I'll set that up later. And then I set this root node, the one that I created last, as the root of the graph. And then I update my tree. So I don't have an editor for doing this, and since it's kind of simple, I can do this manually. And I don't really mind doing it in this way, because I have control and I have these variables, and the variables are really the thing that I work with when I'm implementing gameplay code. And I can write these variables from the entity that's moving around or another entity. So like the way the rat works, as you see it moving around here, the rat is basically writing a variable to these other characters that is basically just telling them to react. It does that through actions. I might show that action system later. I just want to make it a little bit better, because as I said last time, I made the entity system multi-threaded, And now when I started working with actions between multiple entities, that's when problems arise. So I flipped back to not be multi-threaded for a while as I'm fixing things. Thanks. Bye.